Sorry, it takes me a while to make sure everything's all right for the recording. Okay, so a very warm welcome, everybody who's here live, as it were, on Zoom, and good morning or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, if you're watching this later on YouTube. This is the second of our 12 or 13 episodes on the third Jawa Karmapa's Mahamudra prayer. And as always, we need to start with a very, very, very good motivation. We'll be back to that this morning briefly, but as we saw last week, it is the actual title is A Path of Aspiration. It's Manlam, and people who go to the Kaju Manlam. Manlam is a path of aspirations. It's actually a path. It takes us somewhere, leads us away from somewhere, takes us somewhere else. So we're not praying, well, sort of. We're not praying to anybody. It's not like Christians praying to God. I'm helpless. You got all the goodies and all the power. Please, let's have a bit. We're not asking for something, although in this relative world, as you've seen with the very first verse, we are addressing the lamas, the yidams, the gurus of the mandala, and so on. But we are mainly through prayer reorganizing our mind. Akon Rinpoche used to say, as long as your mind is busy thinking, you need prayer. Once you've gone beyond that, you don't need prayer anymore. So your mind's busy anyway. It's either busy doing rubbish, or what we do with prayer is we make it busy doing good things, thinking pure thoughts, nice thoughts, motivating us, aspiration, longing. So gradually our mind, which is a child of habits we developed over all this life and maybe lives before. Prayer is a path that brings in new elements. They take over, become our new habits, and bit by bit, our kind of default, instead of it being the usual defaults of human beings, desire, anger, just stuff going round. Sometimes when I see the stuff going around my head, I wonder where the hell did that come from? Some of it's untraceable. I mean, Ken thoughts, stuff I grew up with, stuff that makes sense to me, okay, that's there. But some stuff, it almost feels like I'm tuning into somebody else's head. Total rubbish. And I hope you're the same. I mean, because otherwise you're going to think you've got a nutcase teaching you. But I think the deeper you look into your own thoughts, weirder it can get. So it's manam. This is an actual path of progress through making clear-minded, strong-minded, beautifully intentioned thoughts and wishes. So, as you know, we start with three things: a big mind, a loving mind, a happy mind. A big mind because we try and include as many, many other beings as possible, thinking we're here learning the Mahamudra prayer in order to help them, and in particular including those who are vivid in our lives, parents, children, siblings, people who've hurt us, people who've helped us, and so on. And then towards all of them, we try and make the biggest love. And we include the monsters of this world, the terrible people, and so on. We try to learn to feel love for them too. We'll come back to that later today in some of Tai Situpa's commentary. And then a happy mind, because we have the Dharma. That's also today's topic. So let's get on with it. And as last week, we'll start with a few simple prayers, and in particular, the Doji Chantoma, the short prayer to Vajradhara. Sonje Chodan Soji Chonam La Jancho Balu Dani Chepsunje Dagi Jinso Chipe Sonamje Jola Penchera Sonje Joparisho Semchen Tamche Dewa Dang Dewe Jodan Den Parajuche Dungal Dang Dungal Je Jodang Tralwara Juche Dungal Mepe Dewa Damba Dang Men Tralwara Juche Yerin Chadan Ne Tang Tralwe Tang Yom Chen Pola Ne Parajuche Doje Chanchen Talo Narodang Mapa Mela Cheche Kampopa De Som Sheja Kunchen Kamapa Chishi Chungje Jupa Zenano Trita Sasum Paden Jupaso Sablam Chaja Chelan Yanipe Nyame Drogonda Po Kajula Sowan Depso Kajula Manam Jupa Zeno Namtara Jinjelo Shenlo Gongji Kampara Sumpa Shen Zeno Kunla Chashen Me Padam Sede Data Chope Gongchen La Nikur Shenpa Me Para Jinjelo Magu Gongji Gora Sumpa Shen Nanga Teko Chepe La Mala Chundu Sowan Depe Gongchen La Chamen Magu Jeware Jinjelo Yingme Gongji Nashir Sumpa Shen Gansha Tokpe Ngo Samaji Macha Dekra Jope Gongchen La Homcha Lodan Chalwara Jinjelo Namdong Ovo Chukra Sumpa Shen Chiang Mayin Chiang Chawala Manga Ropa Chawe Gongchen La Kote Yerme Topara Jinjelo Deyata Shame Shamawate Shameta Shadro Kurim Mare Chite Karota Ke Ore Tejowati Olo Yane Beshuda Ne Male Malapanaye Kukure Kaka Grase Grasana Muki Paramuki Amuki Shame Dawane Sawa Graha Bandanane Ne Kritva Sawa Bara Prawadina Vimukta Marabhasha Savitva Buddha Mudra Nugatita Sava Mare Butsarita Parishudi Bega Shantu Sava Marakama Palen Sawe Lama Rinpoche Dagi Chewara Pende Tenshula Kadren Chempo Gone Jezonte Ku Son Tukche Madrup Saldo Sal. The prayer, as you know, we are following through a structure, and you have the structure in the support documents. And there is an overall three-part structure. There's the beginning, the introduction, setting things in place. And then there's what's called the main body of the prayer, which is in fact nearly all of it. And then at the end, there's a conclusion, dedication. Last week, I introduced you to the wonderful author of this prayer and tried to say one or two things about why he is, for us, the most excellent source of one of the best people there could ever be to write a prayer on Mahamudra. Not only was he the heir to the lineage, in fact, to the two lineages. If we'd had more time last week, I have to say that in Mahamudra, we have two lineages. I mentioned them last week already, Path of Skillful Means, all of the various Vajrayana, tantric practices, work with channels and chakras, mantras, visualizations, and the Path of Liberation, the direct instructions on mind. These are also called, and it's part of the knowledge that's usually transmitted with this prayer explanation, the close lineage and the more remote lineage. The Path of Skillful Means from Tilopa is the close lineage. Now, the terminology, excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat. It's not surprising, I'm in France, but and I eat one from time to time, but and this one's sticking. So anyway, the terminology is old. So if we go back, for instance, to the third Karmapa, this stuff's still quite new in Tibet. Marpa had only brought it a few generations before. It was quite discreet until Gampopa blew it open to a wide audience and combined the Bodhisattva teachings with it. Then there's first, second, third Karmapa. So in his time, if you go back to my guru and my guru's guru and my guru's guru, then pretty quickly, for the Path of Skillful Means or the tantric practices, 6 yogas, quite quickly you're back to Tilopa. So it's called a near lineage. For instance, just to give you an example, one of our current very revered teachers is Kenshin Trungo Rinpoche. One of the reasons he was picked in the 1960s and 70s to be the main teacher of philosophy for the Kagyu Tulkus was because he had a very short lineage to the very great Mipam Rinpoche. He was like his spiritual grandfather. Wonderful, an amazing master. So he had a very, very direct lineage and heart connection with Mipam Rinpoche. So we call the Tilopa lineage close because there are less links. You need to go back only through a few gurus in the early days. The more remote lineage is the Path of Liberation, the mind techniques of Mahamudra, because we trace those, in fact, all the way back to Buddha, the Samadhi Raja Sutra, to the great bodhisattvas who weren't in this world, Lodro Rinchen and so on, and then Saraha. It was a long time, it was earlier in Tilopa. So in the early days, you had a longer lineage and a shorter lineage. But now, a couple of thousand years later, oh, not quite, but anyway, they're all both pretty long. So if you're doing the foundation practices and you look at the refuge tree, it's a long way back to all of them. So I need to mention that. Yeah, if we had time, it gets more interesting. Why was Tilopa? Why we can go back lesser steps and we get to Tilopa. Why does it stop there? Whereas with the Path of Liberation, Mahamudra methods, we go all the way back to Buddha and the Samadhi Raja Sutra. The reason for that is, and I'm going to have to tell you quickly, there's a wonderful story, is that Tilopa was Buddha. He wasn't a master who'd received the teachings. And this is the interesting bit, because he was. When we look at the 6 yogas, where does Tummo come from? Where does Dream Yoga come from? We see the different great Indian Mahasiddhas who were really top practitioners of each of these. And we see that Tilopa did the rounds of India. He actually went to north, south, east, west. He had more than 100 gurus and he practiced under them. And he gathered all of those teachings together to make what we have as the 6 yogas. If you've ever been to India or you know about India, you know the respect for the guru is the deepest thing anyone can have. When you travel on an Indian train, or in the old days, people would ask you, who are you? Where do you come from? Who is your guru? Very meaningful. So Tilopa had 100 of the best gurus in all of India. He'd been all around and he condensed their teachings. But then he made one statement, the Tibetan Lamas, if you want just one, give me a quote from Tilopa, then the one that comes to mind in Tibetan is Tilo Ngala Mi Lama Me Lama Doji Chanche Yin. It means I, Tilopa, have no human guru. Now, this is almost like blasphemy, heresy in India, when you've had 100 wonderful gurus, and he says, I have no guru. It's like, is total disrespect, it sounds like. Until you hear the second line, my guru is Vajradhara, because he had become Vajradhara. There wasn't a difference. He was Buddha. There was no him left. There was just Vajradhara. So one day, please read Tilopa's life story, its various steps, and his Dakini gate today. So some of the steps end up with him in Afghanistan, with the Dakinis of Afghanistan, and it's after that that he becomes Vajradhara. That's another story. So anyway, last week we looked at the title, the suitability of the third Jawa Karmapa to give us this prayer. And then what our lamas say is that as references for Mahamudra, we have several go-tos, very, very famous texts. And this one's just right. Its 24, 25 verses are just right because it unpacks the information. The Indian texts, as I said last week, they're hard to understand, they're easy to misunderstand. They're poetic. In the Tibetan texts, then we do have various famous things like Mahamudra, Ocean of Certainty, that Tai Situpa's teaching, has been teaching over many years now. And that's mainly an instruction manual. It's practice techniques. You've got Mahamudra Moonbeams, which is mainly Mahamudra theory. It's a thick volume. I think there's a new translation now because Lalungpa's translation wasn't reliable. Many people read it, they get a lot out of it, but it's really not reliable. So that's a whole book, a very thick book, a lot of theory. And then the prayer we started with today, the short prayer to Vajradhara, is also a teaching prayer to take us quickly through what is Mahamudra. It's a bit too quickly in terms of teaching us what Mahamudra is. So this one is really, it's really just right. I explained at the beginning, I've got a fan going, so it blows papers around from time to time. So this one's just right. So last week we went through the first verse. Now in the structure, you'll see this is the big, A, B, C, the three main parts. This is the entirety of part A. And so it's the general basis and opening. Now what I didn't do was to give you the transmission. It's very important, or it's considered important by Tibetans, that you get the transmission. It was written in Tibetan, so I will give you the Tibetan transmission. Since the third Jawa Karmapa, he gave this transmission to his disciples, who gave it to theirs, and it came down through Akon Rinpoche, Trungo Rinpoche, my teachers, to me, and now I'm giving it to you. So what you do is sit quietly while I read it, and you imagine that the third Karmapa is right there in front of you, saying this verse in Tibetan, and you're receiving the blessing of his speech and what he conveys through his speech. Nidon Chachachen Boshukso Namo Guru Lama Nam Pan Yedam Chukola Chokchu dusung jalwa sedangche. Dalla tsegong dagi nam nam. Jishin drupi tunjure chinlamse. And then I'll give you the transmission for the 2 or 3 verses we'll do in this session. Daden tai semchen tamcheji samjo namda gari lejepi kosum yome getso chujun nam jalwa kushi jamso jukjurechi. Jisi dematope desidu je dang je watsera kundu yang degetan dongal drayang midraching dege jamso palla cheparesho. Daljo chotop detsun sherabden shinyen zangten tampiche topne surshin drupl parche machipar serab kundu damche cheparasho. So that's the Tibetan, and last week you had the first verse, and let's not go back to it. I hope you remember. And anyway, the videos are online. So last week it was gurus, yidams, deities of the mandalas, all the victors and your offspring in the 10 directions and the 3 times. Please think of me with your compassionate love and grant your blessings that my wishing prayers come true. Now we come to what's called the main body of the prayer. Again, it's in parts. Verse 2 is one part, just one verse. And then after that, nearly all the verses are the second part. This verse 2 is called a general dedication of virtue towards enlightenment. A dedication of virtue towards enlightenment. A dedication means that there is power to channel. And there is power to channel what? Virtue. Now, the word here in Sanskrit is punya. It's very often translated as merit. Some people don't like the word merit because it's got resonances with other faiths, and it sounds very mechanical, like do one good deed, get one point, build up your points, move on to step 2, and you can't move on until you've done this or done that. So punya, merit or virtue, is actually a word of power. Some people these days use the term juice. And either you've got it or you don't. Or you've got this much of it, but you're lacking that much of it. I know, I won't give names, but it's something I've said before in these Zoom teachings. But one very wonderful Tibetan Lama talking about another very wonderful Tibetan Lama. In fact, he was talking about Akon Rinpoche. And the Lama who was speaking, he doesn't mind swearing a bit. He speaks English very, very well. And so he said, bloody hell, Ken, bloody hell, that Akon, I don't know how he done it, but I damn well wish I had the merit he's got, because I tried to do what he doesn't. It doesn't work. Punya, we can only build up through goodness, kind actions, good deeds, practicing the 6 paramita, each one in their own way. It takes time. There's no trick, there's no yogic posture, there's no bit of breathing, there's no sudden way of sitting in mind's clarity. They are going to build up your punya. Shakyamuni Buddha took 3 cosmic eons building up the most amazing punya. It's the actual power. It's like the power in your battery. You know, you look at your phone, how much power have I got left? 60%, 40%. Buddha's 100% punya, right? Somebody like me compared to Buddha, if you can, is maybe 0.5% punya, maybe not even. It's the actual goodness. Now that goodness, when we study other teachings, needs to be there for wisdom. Sometimes in visualizations, you get a lotus that holds up a moon disk, a sun disk. They represent wisdom and compassion. But wisdom and compassion are very hard to grow without that basic goodness, that basic human goodness. So here, it's a dedication of punya. So because and behind this, there's a whole lot of thinking. We are not predestined. It's not all already written. The Buddha's teaching is not predestination. It's about karma, which gives us our story now, but there's room for maneuver. And that room for maneuver will determine what our future story will be. This is very important. One of the ways we change our future using our present as our raw material is through dedication, whereby whatever energy we've got, we channel it in the right direction. It's what today's teaching is about. Otherwise, what humans do, to be reborn human, they've already got punya, sure, lots of it. But the tendency for humans is to waste it. Punya is like cash in the bank, good time, cash in the bank, good health, happy friends, all those nice things of life. Like cash in the bank, we can use it up, and then this life's over, and whoops. Or, as you know, in the Buddhist path, we try to use the capital we've got to make even more. So dedication is what this verse is about. Dedication of our punya, our good energy, our strengths. We have strengths. We can be clever. We can be good-hearted. We can be strong in many ways. How to channel that into the very best outcome. And we'll see here in this verse, the best outcome is Buddhahood, but described here as the 4 kayas of Buddhahood. So let's go briefly through this verse. It's a very beautiful verse. And the more you say it, and as the years of practice go by, you get the feel of it. It's like a cycle. You know the way that water snows on the top of a snow mountain, the water in the space in the sky. And that builds up the snow, and then it trickles down, and they become rivers. And the rivers go into the oceans, and then the oceans evaporate, and with the wind, they go back and snow on top of the mountains. You get the feeling of this timeless cycling of goodness, of wisdom, and in particular, the means for liberation, and how our teachers and the lamas of the lineage help this come down to us, and we ourselves grow, and then we can make things happen. It's overall, there's a cyclical feeling, but if we become more specific, there's a very clear-cut meaning to this verse. So it says, springing from the snow mountain of all the pure intentions and actions of myself and limitless beings are the rivers of accumulated virtue, unpolluted by triplicity. The prayer, the channeling, may they flow into the victor's 4 kayas. So we're talking about pure intentions and pure actions, karma, in other words. When we look at what makes karma, not everything we do makes karma. To take karma, you need 6 factors present. It's another story. But when there is karma, then the motivation is a very important factor in the power of the karma. The action itself is important, but the motivation is much more important. A tiny action, giving somebody a biscuit, can be a huge karma if the motivation behind it is correct, is good. And then huge amount of action, like people do 111,111 prostrations. It looks brilliant, but if the whole reason is competition, jealousy, then not only is there no good karma, there's actually bad karma. So karma, cause and effect, action, and so virtue or the punya we're making, it needs pure intention and it needs pure action. Were we to develop this verse further, then for the pure action, we would consider the 6 transcendent virtues, the 6 paramita. And so obviously we don't have time. We've done this before. There are lots of teachings on the 6 paramita: generosity, right conduct, forbearance, diligence, meditation, prajna, wisdom. But that's what we're talking about, pure action. When we study that generosity, it tells us what is pure generosity in terms of action. These are good things to give. These aren't good things to give. This is the right time to give. These are the best people to give to. This is how to give, and so on, and so on. So we have the 6 paramita are the actions that we're engaged in as bodhisattvas. So in general, the actions and the motivations behind them are pure. So they're compared to the snow. And this is beautiful for Tibetans. Yeah, snow on the mountaintops. And it's pure. Once I went to give a retreat in Zimbabwe, in Nyanga, and it's quite high up in the hills. And I remember the owner of the retreat place telling me, showing me the river. And he said, it's okay to go there. These waters are pure. There's been no human interference, which is a very nice way of saying that upstream there are no sewers or drains going into it. It was very close to the source. So anyway, on the mountaintops, the snow is pure. And even the more so in a way, because Tibetans didn't conquer mountains. They found the Western idea of conquering a mountain. You've got to get to the top. Not nice. On the top of the mountain is where the spirit of the area, the local deities live. The mandalas, it's like Mount Kailash is the Chakrasamvara mandala. And so people live in the valleys, they live on the slopes. And so anyway, that's another story. So mountaintops, where the snow is pure. And then here we're looking when that pure snow melts. When we use the power of our past punya that got us here, that got you here today in Ken Holmes' teachings, but got you into the Dharma. Such a wonderful past you must have done. I don't mean to be with me, but I mean to be in the Dharma and to be who you are in this life. Such a wonderful past. That's your punya. That's the power you have to channel. So that's like the snow mountains. And then in this life, that capital is like the snow that's melting and becoming a river. It's your practice. It's your life story of how you use all your abilities and your powers from the past. So this is like the mountain streams, when you go up and you drink that mountain water. It's so cold and pure, beautiful. No contaminants in it anywhere. So we learn to practice purely, with pure motivation, good heart, right intention, and then to do the practice well. We'll come back to that later. But in this verse, we're looking very generally. Now, for the motivation, it says, these rivers of accumulated virtue, unpolluted by triplicity. So what's triplicity? Some of you know, some don't. You probably more heard of duality. Subject, object. Me, you. With triplicity, we add a third thing, which is me, you, interaction. Subject, object, connection, like subject, power to see, object, something that's visible, and then the connection, the actual seeing, and along with the seeing, the motivation and so on. So subject, object, interaction. These are called the three spheres. They're fascinating. Not as a topic out there, but as the real topic, your life, my life. I've got one sphere, which is me, Ken. My own inner story gave me this body to live in this life. And these eyes, my left eye's a bit wonky, and so on. Had that nearly all my life. Gave me a body. It gave me an inheritance from past lives, of a way to perceive and relate, and so on and so on. So this personal Ken sphere is one thing. What my karma also gave me out there is the objective sphere, like just now, you, some of you are my students and so on, and my family and people and life circumstances, the country I live in, born into post-war Britain and so on and so on. That outer reality, that came with karma, came through the karma post, along with this inner reality. I got those brothers, sisters, parents and so on, and life's general deal out there. That's the second sphere. The third sphere is how do I relate this one, first sphere, to sphere number two? How am I interacting? What am I doing to the people in my life? What are they doing to me as far as I'm concerned? And so on. So we need to study these in detail. And they do seem like three quite separate things. In here we have some power to change me, some power. Out there we have much less power to change other people and the world. And as you know, the Buddha's teaching is very much about using the interaction as our key to Dharma progress. So as we become more and more familiar with Dharma, then what we'll understand through meditation experience, through Dharma theory, is that these three are not so separate as they seem. In Buddhism, we don't speak of oneness as a topic very much. Philosophically, it doesn't hold up. But nevertheless, there is not, and it's interesting, that's just me say something without explaining it. To get the triplicity just from a duality is easier. Subject, object, me, you, right? In Buddhism, we have not two. You and I are not two. I hope that doesn't shock you. You and Ken Holmes aren't two. Where are we going with this? I'm not sure. I want any closer connection with Ken Holmes than I'm me. But anyway, in Buddhism we have not two, but not two does not mean one. It's central to our Buddhist philosophy. In Sanskrit it's called Advaita. Advaita means not two. Not Dvai, two. But many Indian schools of thought for not two means must be one. We are not two. Let's just leave it there. So anyway, with triplicity, we learn through our philosophical training, and we learn mainly through meditation experience, to overcome the delusion of two and of three, of subject, object, and interaction. So when we can do that, then our motivation is pure. So let me give you an example. If you give, there is no thought of me, the generous giver, the giver. No thought of the miserable receiver, pinning a definition on them, a label. And there's no thought of, I'm doing something pretty cool here, giving, and look, I'm being really generous. I'm giving this begging person, not a coin, but a note today. Pretty good. So all these ideas of me and you and interaction are limiting, they're not liberating, and our practice needs to take us to a state of mind which is beyond them, wiser, more serene, more full with the paramita practice. So we learn to do that. It's a big learning. It's the whole path of the 6 transcendent perfections. But when we do that, then the deed, the act of giving, is pure. And the punya, the results, the impact of that on our stream of consciousness are wonderful. Wonderful. Because they will take us out of the samsaric habit. We can do good deeds with triplicity. They bring us good karma, but within the samsaric stream. So with that, we've got part 1 of the main body of the prayer done. Now we come to part 2, which is about the actual practice. And today we're looking at the first, you'll see this if you look at the structure, the first of the 5 main parts of these verses about Mahamudra itself. Today we're looking at having the very best basis for Mahamudra. Next week we'll come to having the very best wisdom. So like this, and then we need to find the very best path and practice it properly and so on. So we have 5 main parts. It covers nearly all the rest of this prayer. And today we have 2 verses about the best. Now it's called basis or foundation. In the scriptures, this word basis or foundation, you can substitute rebirth for it, rebirth. Everything you are, this body you have, this mind you have, your inheritance from your past lives, is the basis for your practice, working basis. So it's called basis. We've got 2 verses. The first verse is a general aspiration. This whole prayer is aspirations, channeling. Aspiration that in future lives we'll have really the best basis for Dharma practice. I think as you get older, you can really mean it. You get to my age, 75, most of my life is done. I can see where I wasted time, a lot of it. So the idea that, but in the future, we're going to get it just right. Like arrowed bullseye, right on target, everything, so good. So these verses are about that. The first one, a general wish. And then the next one is more specific, wishing specifically for the things we'll need to practice Mahamudra in the most efficient way. So let's look at the first general wish. We just dedicated all the virtue. Oh, sorry, I didn't finish that verse. Didn't talk about the victor's four kayas. Bother, that takes a while. So anyway, sorry, we're going back to the previous verse. We're channeling the results of the good deeds with their good motivations, non-triplistic motivation, to the end of becoming Buddha. And here, Buddha is expressed through the four kayas. It's a huge topic. But nevertheless, we need a very brief, sort of back of envelope definition of what Buddha really is. So we get four kayas: Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya, Svabhavikakaya. Dharmakaya is what Buddha really is, as far as Buddha is concerned. So when you become Buddha, you become Dharmakaya, and that's it. You understand it complete. It is complete. It's the timeless, changeless nature of reality, nature of mind that's always been. There's nothing more. There's no more persona, stream, all gone. You are, is called that. The word Tathagata, word for Buddha, means Tata, that, Gata, became that. You have become that. So we call that Dharmakaya. Kaya means the embodiment of Dharma. Dharma means things, everything. Everything is contained within it. Everything. It is the container of everything, but more than that, because its very nature is wisdom, it knows everything. And that's the source of all the Dharma that comes out to teach. It holds everything, and it has the wisdom of everything. So the spacious quality of mind that can make heaven, can make hell, can make all the spiritual experiences, the Dharma path, the Bodhisattva levels, Pure Lands, everything. That endless capacity of mind is called Dharma Dhatu. Dhatu means expanse. Dharmakaya means the wisdom that's innate to that expanse. So when you become Buddha, you become that, and it is formless. No color, no shape, no location, no thing, nothing. Not nothing, but no thing. No words can describe it. But when you become Buddha, other people, other beings will experience you. And now this goes back to the past. On the way to becoming Buddha, you make connections with other beings. You make prayers. You make karmic connections. And so for some of them, you will be a source of inspiration, teaching. Generally, those beings we had past connections with, by the time we've become Buddha, you Buddha, it will happen. Me Buddha, I don't know if I'll be called Ken then. Buddha Ken may have a different name, but it will happen. Maybe you'll get there first, maybe I'll get there first. But when you become Buddha, those with whom you've had a profound connection and who've got free from a samsaric mind, and reach the bodhisattva levels, 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 10, they will perceive you, even though you have no form, no shape, so on and so on. You've become the timeless Buddha mind. Because of the karmic connection, they will perceive you in hundreds, thousands of ways, as a form, color, shape, as sound as you teach them. In their mind, you manifest as sound. I'd like to share very, very briefly, I know many of you have heard it a lot before, but it's one of the miracles of my life. Once in the Dordogne, I ushered people into an audience with the 16th Karmapa. I've been traveling with him, I knew him, he had a few words of English, spoke Tibetan, used an interpreter. Small group of people, spent about 20 minutes with him. An Italian woman, she came out, she said to me, "Oh, Ken, you speak the most beautiful Italian." And he said, without me saying, he answered all my questions. So she had been 20 minutes in with the 16th Karmapa, hearing him answer all her questions in Italian. And he was just sitting there being. That's how it works. So it's wonderful to have an in this life real experience of what the scriptures tell us. So even though you have gone beyond, totally gone beyond, those from the past with the connection will experience you guiding them. Because you've gone beyond time and space, they're still in time and space, so these connections can work. So what they experience is called Sambhogakaya. They only experience you in Pure Land form, only teaching the Mahayana Dharma, and so on and so on. Qualities of Sambhogakaya. But then those who have connection with you and who are still in the samsaric mind, who are still being reborn, and very much into those rebirths, they will still experience you as a somebody coming into their world, as a, it can be as a tulku, as a human presence of Buddha mind, like our great Rinpoches. But it's also, when we look at Nirmanakaya, you can go into a world where there's no Dharma and give them science, give them hygiene, give them protection. You can even become inanimate objects to help people. We pray in the Bodhisattva prayer, may I become a bed for those who need rest. May I become a bridge for those who need to cross rivers, and so on. So all of those ways of emanating into the very closed worlds of beings in samsara is called Nirmanakaya. The fourth kaya, Svabhavika kaya, is the core for all of those three. Buddha, that only Buddhas know, Buddha that great bodhisattvas know and experience, Buddha that people in the world know. They are not three separate departments. They all happen spontaneously from one core essence. So Svabhavika means very core essence, kaya. That's our prayer. So in the next verse, we're saying, from until this is achieved, then life after life, and in all my lives, may even the terms evil and suffering be unheard, and may the plenitude of an ocean of happiness and goodness be enjoyed. In the commentaries and in explanations, we don't get a lot about this one. It's one of the most interesting verses for us, I think. And the present Tai Situpa said this second line. He says it's a bit over the top, but we need to understand it. And someone who's kind of nitpicking, thinking, just a minute, this doesn't make sense. They might say that, but it's not what it means. You might think, for instance, may even the terms evil and suffering be unheard. So somebody who thinks, oh, just a minute, if you never encounter suffering, how are you going to have compassion? And isn't Buddhahood the result of all the compassion you build up? No compassion, no Buddhahood. So why are you, isn't this a cop-out? Isn't this like the criticism we make of some of the lesser Buddhist schools where they just want out? How can a bodhisattva not want to hear evil and suffering? So it's not a technical philosophical verse. It's the Karmapa's wish. And in particular, the Karmapa's wish for us who are born in terms of Buddhist history in the time of Shakyamuni Buddha, which are the 1,002 Buddhas who come to this, what's called Golden Age. The time of the 1,002 Buddhas until this particular karmic group that we're in and its environment comes to an end. He's number 4 of the 1,002. We've got a lot more to go. But he comes at the lowest point. Guru Rinpoche later describes it as the time of darkness, time of dregs. We're Buddhists, we have wonderful Buddhist teachings, we're so lucky, but we're in a time of degeneration. So Karmapa is telling us it won't always be like this. It won't. When we look at all the other eons to come and our own journey, when we, our group here, will eventually meet up with Buddha Maitreya, it will get better and better and better. The times will be purer. There won't be the degeneration, the war, the conflict, the disharmony of the elements. People won't be full of anger and desire and jealousy. It will be good. So he's helping us keep that in mind. But then when it says, may these terms be unheard, this can go very, very deep. We don't have time today. Maybe we need a few more years of reflection and practice together. And I was talking about this with a friend the other day. You know, in Christianity, they say Jesus wept. In the Bible, we get 3 times when he weeps. So the question is, did Buddha weep? And then philosophically, does Buddha need to experience suffering in order to feel compassion? What is the Buddha's compassion? Because if we say Buddha's mind is totally unstained, but at the same time, Buddha is aware of everybody and their suffering. Stop and think about this. Okay, you're praying to become Buddha. You want to be aware of everybody's suffering. Have you even been very aware of just one person's suffering? It's hard. It's very confused. It's dark in there. And the places where it's dark, some of them are so dark, you'd never believe. Do you want to be beyond time and space, so constantly aware of every suffering that ever happened in every mind, of every being, in paranoia, and so on? But if you're not, then what is your compassion? It's a wonderful question. I'll leave you with it. And we do get the answer through meditation. So one of the meanings, if we go in that direction, is how your kindness, your love for your fellow beings, your compassion can be stronger and stronger. But you realize that you don't need to hurt like somebody else in order to be able to help them. And you don't need to hurt yourself in order to fully appreciate what they're going through. This is quite subtle. It's a skill that comes mainly through meditation practice. Anyway, I'll leave that with you. So we're just praying for everything to be good so that we can deepen Mahamudra practice and that we have all the tools and the circumstances to help others. The next verse is more precise. It's specifically asking for the conditions we'll need for Mahamudra. So I read the Tibetan, and it says, obtaining the freedoms and advantages of the finest human existence, endowed with faith, diligence, and intelligence, may I rely upon good masters, receive the quintessence of their instructions, and, meeting no obstacle to their proper practice, may I make use of the sacred teachings in all my life. So this is a roadmap for your future Mahamudra, and the following verses will unpack many of the details of this. So first, we're praying to get, it's called the freedoms and the advantages of the precious human existence, finest human existence. So those of you who are doing Kaju Mahamudra preliminaries, foundation practices, you know, my own training from my teacher Hakon Rinpoche, and what he liked people to do if they had the time was to spend 6 months with each of the 4 ways of changing the mind. So to spend 6 months contemplating the precious human existence every day. And we contemplate it when I teach it to my students. We have 42 topics of contemplation. We can give them a couple of days each to really help us appreciate how rare and how wonderful and powerful this precious human existence is, because we don't. We're damn well asleep. We're used to it ever since we popped out of our mother when we were a tiny baby. We've been used to this life, and it just happened. It seems normal. Yet if we can zoom out from a bodhisattva or Buddha's eye view of just this planet and its 8 billion people, and then out of all of them and their possibilities is what we're looking at. Your life, my life, is a conjunction of so many favorable factors. It's unbelievable what you could do with this life, what I could do with this life. Amazing. But we are asleep in kind of a feeling of normality. So Buddha's called waking up. So we try and wake ourselves up by appreciating what we're praying for here, on the assumption that we've already done the study and the reflection, is that I want one of those in my next life. And to get one of those, we need to make the courses in this life that will make it happen, to use, to channel the punya, the strengths we have now, use them to the full. So when you study it, you see what are called the freedoms is really telling you what you're not just now. You're not an animal, you're not a butterfly, you're not a deer, you're not in the ghost realms, and so on. So when we study them, we look at the inconveniences of being in those other realms, and even the deva realms. We see they're kind of far too lazy. Everything's so good, and at last seems unchanging. There's no motivation to do anything, and so on. So we see what we're not, or that even if we are human, we don't have this precious opportunity because we're born in a place where there's no Dharma, or because our own mind is savage, it's primitive, and so on. So we look at what we're not with the freedoms, but what we're not just now. No guarantee next life will be like that. And then we look at the advantages, 10 of them. 5 factors inside us, which means we can practice. 5 factors in the world around us. We're in a world where Buddha came. Buddha taught. The teachings are still alive. We have teachers there who are willing to teach us, and we have enough support that we can get time to put teachings into practice. So we study those. Most of that comes as a result of your past karma. So far we've got 18 factors. 8 freedoms, 10 assets. Your past karma gave you that. Now we're looking at what's key and what we're praying for in future lives. Endowed with faith, with diligence, and with intelligence. There, it's not it's partly an inheritance from past life, but this is where you have room for maneuver, where we have room to just waste the assets we have or to use them most efficiently. Faith is all sorts of faith. When we study the precious human existence, we study three main types of faith. The faith where it makes sense to you, karma, cause and effect, and so on and so on, it makes sense. Faith of conviction, faith of aspiration, where something stirs in us, where we hear about Buddhas or Milarepa or whatever, and it's like a spark that ignites something. We aspire to that, we know, could do that. And then faith of clarity, which comes through experience, where you've done enough meditation and you've felt the power of punya, goodness in life, that you're clear what the Buddha and your Guru is, where they want to take you, and where the best part of you wants to take yourself, and where the other parts of you are dragging their feet and trying to pull you back into samsara. So faith of those three sorts, faith in the process. Now, let's just, we're going through the words one by one. Let's park that here. These two verses, aspirations for having a best basis in the next life, as taught by Tibetan IIIrd Karmapa to Tibetans, mainly to Buddhist Tibetans, mainly to Buddhist Tibetan monks and yogis. Now you're listening to them, not from a Tibetan, and you grew up in a Western world. So I think we have to put the brakes on, not quite like a Swedish U-turn in a rally. We need to put the brakes on for a moment. You know, these guys, they can turn the car around with the handbrake in about a second. We don't need to do that, but we need to put the brakes on and say, just a moment. Do you really believe in future lives? Okay, maybe you really believe in them, but do you really believe in them? What I mean is the next life as real for you as tomorrow is real for you? If we're honest, unless some of you are really super duper yogis, tomorrow is very real for us, isn't it? You've got plans. You're making provisions for it. If tomorrow is important, then you may be sacrificing today to make tomorrow work. We all do that. It's real for us. We really believe in it. And then not just tomorrow, but usually next week, and the week after that, and when the school holidays are over, and so on and so on. It's real for us. Is your next life as real for you as tomorrow? Really there, so that you can see this life as being ways to make the next life better. So I think we need to ask that question of ourselves, because it comes back in all the Buddha's teachings and our Kammakaju teachings. The real Dharma person thinks of the next life. Worldly people are thinking only for this life. It's so true. It's so true. So we want to use our punya for the best. So faith, let's come back now to the word by word. Faith is faith in the Buddha's teaching about karma, cause and effect. That you have been other people in the past, and other beings, and you will be. It's a long story. And We're our own worst enemy if we mess up our own future now. So when we have this precious human opportunity to have faith in what Karmapa tells us, Tai Situpa tells us, all our lamas tell us, what Buddha tells us about rebirth. And even though we can't see it, even though we can't know what it will be, to really hold that dear to our hearts and to use this life as best we can. So faith in all the Buddha's teachings, but especially karma, cause and effect. And then diligence. And our current Tai Situpa, he was teaching this at one point, this Mahamudra prayer, and he said, diligence, he says, it's not what most people think. He said, look at the wall. I take that wall. He said, if I bang my head against it, and I keep banging my head against it, in the end, if I'm not dead, there's going to be a dent in the wall, a hole in the wall. So some people think of diligence as like you just keep on, you do more, you work so hard, you do it week after week, month after month, year after year. That's what diligence is. In Buddhism, it's not. It's not nice terminology, but really and truly, these days, if somebody was going to translate that into a meaningful modern word, you'd say efficiency. Being diligent means being efficient with your life. So he said, rather than banging my head, which maybe eventually will make a dent in the wall, I go out and I buy a sledgehammer. One blow, poof, you've got a hole in the wall. That's diligence. Using your resources efficiently. The root of diligence, as you know when we studied the paramita, is diligere, delight. It's the same word as our English delight. So just imagine there's 300 people around you banging their heads against the wall, right? And you think, just a minute. And you pop down to the supermarket and you get yourself a sledgehammer and you come back. You're going to feel really delightful. Look, puff. There's a better way to do this. So he said, diligence is about receiving transmission, as it says in this verse, for getting skillful methods and using your mind, your thoughts, your emotions, your visualization, your aspirations, using them effectively. Maybe that's a kinder word, because efficiency sounds like business. Sounds like people with stopwatches. So effectively, effective use of Dharma practice. It's a big topic. And when we study the paramita of diligence, if we've got lots of time, then we start looking at 3 types of individual with dull, medium, or sharp faculties, and so on and so on, but we don't have time here. And then intelligence. Oh, and diligence. Diligence, there's something else to say. One thing Tai Situpa shared was, he said, in Tibet, there were yogis of all sorts. Some of them were quite eccentric, what people call crazy yogis, and probably one of the 3 craziest was called Drupa Kunlek. Drupa Kunlek, Drupa Kaju Lama, as his name suggests, was totally outrageous. And he didn't look good either. He kind of, didn't wash, wore rags, had dreadlocks, and so on like this. Okay, so at one point, he went to visit the most famous Buddhist statue in the whole of Tibet. It's called the Jobo statue in Lhasa. And people said he went in, didn't do prostration, so it wasn't his style. He walked in, they said he just stood there for a long time, looking at Buddha Shakyamuni's statue. And then he started talking, just like he was talking to the Buddha, like he was alive there. And so Tai Situpa said, he said 4 lines which have become famous. First line: a long time ago, you and me were the same. Second line: you were diligent, therefore you've become enlightened. Third line: I'm lazy, so look, I'm here now, still wandering in samsara. And then he said, so Buddha, I bow to you. And then he made his prostrations. You know, normally when people come in the building, they make prostrations and so on, offerings. So even though we may have profound view about emptiness, voidness, shunyata, and about crazy action, diligence, punya, lifetime after lifetime, very, very, very important. So then he carries on in this verse, intelligence. So we need wisdom, and so that's a huge topic, but we're praying that in our next life, you see, we've got the best basis, precious human existence, and then we trust what we're receiving, and we practice it diligently, effectively, from the heart, and also intelligently, because we understand better and better what's going on and how to apply ourselves to our own practice. So then, with that basis, he says, may I rely upon good Dharma masters. So here, if we had another whole session, what is a good Dharma master? What are the qualities of an authentic teacher? We have various texts that give lists. A good teacher needs to tick all the boxes because we're going to rely on them. So just leave it there for now. But then meeting the good teachers, wonderful. I met the Dalai Lama. I think in my own life I met Dalai Lama and looked after him when he was in Samaling, 12, 15 times, something like that. But even though I can put on the I met the Dalai Lama medals, you know, or I was at Kala Chakra teachings here and were you there, like Woodstock, you know, were you at Woodstock kind of thing. Being in the presence of the teachers is a wonderful blessing, an inspiration. There's a fluid that comes across. But if you don't use it, then what a waste. It's like me when I was doing odd jobs in Samaling. I wasn't very good. I was using their beautiful store of hardwoods, mahoganies and walnuts and things, just to do odd jobs in the corridor. You know, it needed a bit of wood. Oh, there's some wood. And I'd be banging nails through this precious woods. They stayed up for about 30 years. Every time I walked through that corridor, I was ashamed of what I'd done. And beautiful mahogany that I then painted. It gets worse and worse. So anyway, being in the presence of great teachers and listening to their teachings and receiving the empowerments is a necessary step, but then the next step is, may I make use of those teachings? Seen from a teacher's point of view, which I did, not as me as a teacher, but as a very close attendant to Akon Rinpoche. I've said I'm very happy about it, proud of it. I spent some 20,000 hours in his company, 20,000 hours. And he shared a lot, and I saw him handling people. I did his correspondence for many years for his disciples and so on. So to see what it's like from their side, the treasures they give us, and how it's just like anything else. You know, we don't No, it's like those hardwoods. It's like rare gems. We don't see what's being given. Yeah, it's great, it's the Dharma, but we don't realize what an opportunity. This is all about opportunity. So to use the teachings to the full, that's what diligence means. To realize the treasure you've been handed and how to make the most of it, because that helps you help everyone. We're doing it for everybody's benefit, no matter how hard. And it says, meeting no obstacle to their proper practice. And there are many prayers about, obstacles not arising on the bodhisattva path. It's a big topic, but the real obstacle, when we go back to triplicity, there's life happening out there, there's you in here, and then the third area, how you react to it. The obstacles aren't out there. Sickness, or in here, sickness from the inside, enemies from the outside, people who are really horrible to you from the outside, people who make your life so that you can't practice Dharma, so you have to work, whatever it is. They are not the obstacles. The obstacles is in number 3, the interaction. If you relate properly to your illness, it becomes Dharma. Then it's not an obstacle, it's a support. If you interact properly with the troublemakers in your life and the difficult circumstances, war, poverty, country going down the tubes, whatever it is, everything can be turned from what people call obstacles because they define their life by circumstances. For us as Dharma practitioners, as bodhisattvas, anything can be turned into fuel for the path. It's like a stove. Some stoves, they burn coal, they burn wood, they burn almost anything. As bodhisattvas, we can burn almost any situation into fuel for becoming kinder, softer, more at peace with everybody. Have more understanding of karma that's making things happen, more understanding of the Buddha's renunciation, and so on. Everything. So the obstacle to Dharma, and we're praying for no obstacles, isn't to have everything cushy. Tai Situpa says when he's commenting on this, sometimes when everything goes too smoothly in life, that's not helpful for Dharma. We cruise, we're having a good time. And we waste our time. So I think that's what I wanted to say mainly. It was a bit rushed. Almost every word in those prayers. So my conclusion, same as Tai Situpa's when he said, these first verses, nearly all the Buddha's Dharma is in them, and they can be expanded at great length. So let's dedicate now the goodness of this morning. And we've seen about aspirations that's dedicated in all those ways. Sonam di tamche zikpani tobnenye pedranam pamchene je ganachi palap trukpaye sipe sole drowa drowarasho janchub semcho rinpoche ma jepanam jejochik jepa nyampa mepadam kongne kongdu pelwarasho Gewa di nyududa chacha chenpo drukjone drowa chikjang malopa de sala kaparasho